गुड गुड भाई, ऑल गुड। हाँ, लेट्स स्टार्ट। कल जो हमने किया था वहां से हम आगे कंटिन्यू करते हैं। एंड देन हम लोग थोड़ा बहुत फॉरेक्स करेंगे। आई नोटेड यू हैड some difficulties in solving forex one, so let's try a few examples and get those concepts right as well. So let me share my screen. कल हमने जो किया था उसको क्विकली 2 मिनट देख लेते हैं, and then let's move to another method. So yesterday we all started with stockholders equity. Presentation क्या रहेगा? Stockholder equity, that was our starting point. We saw capital stock, EPIC, retained earnings. How retained earnings is calculated: you have a beginning plus adjustments, you got adjusted retained earning, then you have a profit for the period minus any distribution gives you a ending retained earnings. You can further redistribute your retained earnings as per your requirement. For example, you want to put for a fixed assets, for a debenture redemption, for any other purpose. Then you have a OCI, it's your pace. Again, your format is beginning OCI plus addition to OCI minus reclassification to income statement. And then we saw treasury stock. Treasury stock is all where we have all mathematics comes into a picture. We saw some definition: what is authorized share, what is issued share, what is outstanding share, what are the features which common stockholders have, what are the features for the preferred stockholders have. Very important is a cumulative and non-cumulative. Cumulative means even if dividend is not declared, a liability is accrued. In the year when you make actual payment, you have to make the payment for arrears as well. But if it's a non-cumulative, you are not supposed to pay dividend if it is not declared. And we saw a participating preference shares. So participating preference shares, they have a right to participate in the excess profits of the company. And you have something called a non-participating preference shares or a partially participating preference shares. And only to that extent a participation comes into a picture. We saw mandatorily redeemable preference shares. These are in the nature of debt because even though the name is preference share, they behave like a debt. You pay them a regular dividend, you have a fixed maturity date, and you have to pay them in a cash on a certain maturity date. इसके बाद हमने देखे थे few examples of participating preference dividends. Then we saw EPIC, what all things are there in EPIC, and then we all started with the treasury stock. Treasury stock, we saw a cost method. Cost method में हमने देखा था you recognize everything, every treasury stock at cost only. So in this example we saw कि आपने 200 shares को repurchase किया था at $20. So you recognize treasury stock at a cost. इसके बाद आप आइदर ये शेयर को री इश्यू करोगे या आप इसको रिटायर करोगे. इफ यू आर री इश्यूइंग द शेयर, इफ देयर इज अ गेन, इट इज गोइंग टू एपिक ट्रेजरी स्टॉक. इफ देयर इज अ लॉस, तो सबसे पहले आपको देखना है कि एपिक में कोई बैलेंस है या नहीं है फॉर ट्रेजरी स्टॉक. If Epic Treasury stock has the balance, you utilize that first. If Epic Treasury stock has no balance, then you debit a retained earnings for that particular balancing figure. कॉस्ट मेथड, कोई डाउट? सिमुलेशंस में जनरली आता है ये क्वेश्चन.
No.
Okay, if no doubt, I want you to solve one example, example number 2 under cost method, just to make sure you are crystal clear. इसके बाद 5 मिनट्स के बाद हम लोग पार वैल्यू मेथड शुरू करते हैं. So over to you.
First sheet. Just-
Sheet number 3, treasury stock example, row number 40, example number 2.
you want me to make an entry for the issuing of shares as well, or only for
Yes,
the
all
treasury
issuing
stock?
the share, issuing the share, then buyback, and then reissue of the share.
Okay.
Perfect. So all entries are okay. First entry आपने डेबिट किया cash, which are 8 plus 5 $13, 650,000. Common stock credited at par value, which is 250,000, and then epic for 400,000. Then आपने buyback किए shares. Cost method है, so you recognize entire $75,000 as a treasury stock. और फिर आपने issue किए at $18. So you get the money for $90,000. You are closing the treasury stock account of $75,000, and $3,000 is the excess above what you buy back. So that is going to a epic treasury stock. So this is perfect. So I think you are very clear with the cost method. अब चलते हैं new method पे, which is a par value method. Now par value method पे there is generally all the impacts are given to your epic common stock. epic treasury stock generally use नहीं होता है. So 99% cases your epic treasury stock is not used unless there is a loss. We will see in one of the example. So let's carry on the same example which we had on the book. So let's go up. हमारे पास example है कि first of all company has issued $10,000. Okay, sorry, let me open par value. The company has issued 10,000 shares at $10 par common for $15. So your entry is cash account debited $150,000, to common stock $100,000, to paid in capital $50,000. Exactly the same entry we are recording cash debit to common stock to epic common stock. So this is your epic for common stock. Now here is a change. What is happening? The company is buying back 200 share at 20 per share. Under cost method, we recognized at cost, so treasury stock account debit to cash. However, under the par value method, this is treated differently. Under par value method, this is not going to be at cost, rather this is going to be treated at a par value. So what is the meaning of par value? We are saying that we have taken back 200 share. Let's record them as if they were taken at a par amount. So definitely we have given a cash of 4,000 to the shareholder. So cash is credited with the 4,000. However, treasury stock is debited at a par value. The par value of the share is $10. So treasury stock is debited for $2,000. Now, when you issued this share originally, you issued the share at a $5 of premium. So $10 was a par value. It was issued for $15. It means you had a $5 of Epic common stock. So we reverse Epic common stock as well for a $5, which you had a balance available. Now, remaining, if any balances are available, that is debited through your retained earnings. So your entry is Epic Treasury stock at par value, 200 shares into $10. Epic common stock, that is the original issue which you had at a $5 premium, and remaining balance is going through your retained earnings, which is your $1,000. So your entry is treasury stock debit to Epic to retained earnings. This is your balancing figure. To cash you are paying to your buyback shareholders of $4,000.
Why is
This
it
is
going to
only,
retain earnings?
sorry, come again.
Why is it going to retain earnings?
Because ultimately you have paid more. So you have paid from your profits, and profits are accumulated to your retained earnings. यहाँ तक clear है. This is only a major change. इसके बाद the things again will come into a flow. All clear with this second entry?
Okay, we cannot subtract it all from Epic CS, right?
No, because for this 200 share, you had a $5 of Epic only available. So $5 per share into 200 bought back. So maximum only $1,000 is available from the Epic to be used.
Okay.
Chaliye, let's see next transaction. Now this is again a hypothetical situation they have created. If buyback was at $20, this was the entry. Another scenario they have given, that suppose they have done a buyback of 200 shares at a $12 per share. So let's build the logic. So first of all, you are paying how much amount? So let's say entry here. You are paying $2,400 back. So cash is credited 200 shares into 12 per share, which is 2,400. We are under par value method. So par value debits the treasury stock at a par value. So 200 into $10 per share, which is $2,000. When you issue 200 share, you originally had an Epic of $5 available. So you had an Epic debited for 200 share into $5, which comes to 1,000. Now there is a plug on the credit side. So you issue additional paid-in capital for treasury stock. Now this is a gain, and this is only a scenario where you have a treasury stock coming into a picture. Now understand this transaction from logical point of view. When the shares were issued, they were issued at $15. But when you are taking the share back, you are just paying a $12 back to your shareholder. It means you have a profit of $3 per share into 200 shares. So $600 is a profit because of only the buyback, and hence you create additional paid-in capital treasury stock account. I have put a net entry here. I have just used Epic as a common account. But if you want to break entry down into a multiple steps, then you can use two different Epic accounts, one Epic for common stock and one Epic for treasury stock. Clear with the third entry? What happens if you are issuing at a profit?
We calculate the difference with from the issue price, not the par value.
We calculate the difference from what we have, yes, issued price. So basically आप हमेशा डेबिट करोगे treasury stock को at your par value. What you are paying is $2,400. So what we are saying basically कि जब ये share initially issue हुए थे, we got 200 share into $15. So we received from the shareholders total $3,000. But now we are paying them back only $2,400 to buy back this particular share.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just the two different scenarios. Either you will be given this particular scenario or this particular scenario. Both scenarios will not come together. So first entry for your original issue. Second entry, what happens when you buy back? One option is you buy back above the issue price. One option is you buy back below the issue price. Now let's take an example further. आप क्या बोल रहे हो कि यू आर री इशूइंग दी 100 शेयर. तो आपने 200 शेयर को बायबैक किया है. आउट ऑफ 200 शेयर्स यू आर अगेन री इशूइंग अ 100 शेयर फॉर $22. और ये कौन से वाले शेयर है? द शेयर्स विच वर बॉट बैक एट $20 पर शेयर, which is given in the question. तो आपने इसको री इश्यू कितने में किया, $22. सो यू आर गेटिंग मनी कितना, 100 shares into 22, which becomes 2200. Your entry is cash account debited 2200, बट इट्स अ पार वैल्यू मेथड, तो ट्रेजरी स्टॉक तो हमेशा हमेशा किस पे रिकॉर्ड होगा, पार वैल्यू पे. सो 100 share into $10 par value, which is $1000. The plug will go as a epic common stock, which is $1200. अगेन थंब रूल, आपका एपिक ट्रेजरी स्टॉक तभी यहाँ पर क्रिएट होगा when you are having a buyback below the issue price. Otherwise, you always going to use epic common stock under par value method. अगेन अगर आप इसको दोनों मेथड को समझोगे, yesterday we saw a presentation कि end result remains the same, net common equity is going to remain the same. It's just how you present the items separately. In cost method, you show entire treasury stock on a cost. In par value, we will see you will show everything at a par value, and then whatever plus or minus happens, that happens between your APIC and retained earnings. Ultimately, your net common equity, which is presented in the balance sheet, it remains the same. It's just a different mathematical method which a company wants to follow. Clear with this entry? You are reissuing the shares.
Yes.
चलिए एक और एग्जांपल है नीचे. आपने 200 शेयर्स ले लिए थे $20 पे, उसमें से 100 को री इश्यू किया. नाउ अनदर 100 यू आर री इश्यूइंग. जो आपने $20 में बायबैक किए थे, नाउ यू आर री इश्यूइंग फॉर $13 ओनली. नाउ आपको कैश कितना मिल रहा है, $100 इंटू 13, सो दैट इज डेबिटेड. अंडर पार वैल्यू मेथड ट्रेजरी स्टॉक हमेशा हमेशा किस पे रिकॉर्ड होता है, पार वैल्यू पे. तो 100 इंटू 10, दिस इज योर पार वैल्यू. So remaining is the plug. This is your epic common stock again. This is the amount which is issued in about वो par value. So again दोनों मेथड में डिफरेंस क्या है. Under the cost method, everything you treat on a current cost basis, and you create one more epic account for rerouting the transaction. Under par value method, you treat as if everything is a new issue of the share or a buyback of the share, and you continue to use your epic common stock account, unless there is only a one exception where you are buying back the shares below the issue price and you are creating a loss for yourself. Again, epic common stock, epic treasury stock, everything combines together, and net epic is reported into a balance sheet. So even if a company decides not to have a multiple epic account and continue to use a one common epic account, that is also an acceptable practice. Clear है with this particular example?
Yes.
चलिए फिर लेट्स हैव अ प्रैक्टिस. फर्स्ट एग्जांपल जो हमने कल देखा था, लेट्स सॉल्व एग्जांपल राइट हैंड साइड. ओवर टू यू. एंट्रीज अंडर अ पार वैल्यू मेथड. So treasury stock account debited 50,000 number of share at par value. ठीक है, आपने कैश कितना पे किया है? $15 पर शेयर, दैट इज $75,000. आपने जब शेयर इश्यू किए थे तब कितने में इश्यू किए थे? यू हैव नो इंफॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल, सो लेट्स अज्यूम यू हैव एपिक अवेलेबल फॉर अ फुल अमाउंट. So your first entry is perfect. Treasury stock account debited $50,000. EPIC common stock account debited $25,000 to cash $75,000. So your first entry is perfectly fine. Now you are reissuing 2,000 shares at $18. So you are crediting the treasury stock 2,000 shares at $10 par, perfect $20,000. Cash कितना मिल रहा है आपको? $2,000 into 18. So $36,000 cash you are getting. Okay. So what will be the $16,000 of plug?
Epic. So yes.
Yes, perfect. So it's a credit epic $16,000. Now 1,000 shares. Now you are reissuing at 12. This is interesting. So 1,000 into 12, you are getting 12,000, and epic is, will it be a debit or will it be a credit?
Credit.
Yes, you are getting a cash of 12,000. Your par value is 10,000. So 2,000 is effectively your credit. Now let's just do one more thing. We have a 3,000 issue. Let's put one more. 2,000 shares are reissued at $21. I want to show you something. I want to give one analysis to you, so you will be again clear with this method. So 2,000 shares issued at $21. Okay. Now the question is why we are only using Epic common stock. If you see the first entry, let me just do a little bit of spacing here, so you will get to know the things. Now, if you see your first entry, you are debiting entire Epic which you have collected. And hence, whenever you see, so for example, this particular transaction, when you are taking the shares back at $15, assuming $5 was a Epic, your 25,000 Epic is already reversed out. So now technically what is happening, you have received the money from the shareholders for the $75,000. Sorry, you are paying the money of $75,000 back to your customers. Now, when you are reissuing the first stock, you are getting 36,000. Second, 12. Third, 42. So in return, you are recollecting $90,000 while reissuing the share. So when initial entry happened, when first time share would have been issued, everything goes to Epic. When buyback happens, the hit was taken to Epic. And when again the shares were reissued, again the extra money collected goes to the Epic. So your basic concept which says that equity is recorded at a par value and anything above your par value or below your par value goes to your Epic directly. So that entire concept is getting fulfilled in the par value method, even though the cost value method is also acceptable criteria. Clear with the par value method?
What did
चलिए
you?
एक और.
What was your last point?
So my last point was what would have happened when you issued the shares on the first time. 50,000 shares would have been issued. Let's say it were issued at $12. So can I say $10 was a par value and $2 would have gone to your Epic? So 50,000 into 2, $1 lakh would have gone to your Epic account. When you buy back the share, 25,000 hit is taken to your Epic account. When you reissue the shares again, then again the credit is going to your Epic account. So we are not creating the extra accounts under par value method. We are just following a routine concept which says that if your issue price is more than your par value, then it goes to your Epic credit. And if it is less than your par value, it goes Epic on the debit side or vice versa or redemption. In this particular example, you would have received only $12 while issuing the share, but you are paying $15 back. So you are debiting the Epic whatever excess contribution in compared to the par value. So under par value method, we are not creating the new ledger accounts like Epic Treasury stock and all. We are just following a simple accounting concept कि par value जो है वो common stock में जाएगा and anything above or below par value will straight away go to your Epic account. So this is a more simpler version of the accounting and cost method is a slightly advanced or a complicated method of accounting. Both are still acceptable under the gap.
Okay.
चलिए one more example for practice then we'll move on from this topic. So the same example जो आपने morning में किया, let's do the same for par value method. So your first entry, will it remain same or will it change?
Same.
Perfect. It's a stock issuance entry, so it has no impact. The same entry. So it's a nice example. Second, first line item, your debits are not equal to your credits. Second entry, debits credits match नहीं हो रहे हैं. लॉजिक यूज करो. आपने $13 में शेयर इश्यू किया था, यू आर बाइंग बैक फॉर 15 dollars. Let's go back to the book once again. Let's see. हमने एक एग्जांपल देखा है अभी ही रिसेंटली कि आपका एक कॉमन स्टॉक जो है वो आपने लॉस में परचेज आउट किया हुआ है. जस्ट ट्राई टू यूज द सेम लॉजिक. आपके पास एपिक अवेलेबल नहीं है, सो आपने $15 में शेयर इश्यू किया था, आपने बायबैक 12 में किया, सो यू हैव अ गेन. सिमिलर एग्जांपल आपने $13 में इश्यू किया है. ओ सॉरी सॉरी, माय बैड, नो इट्स नॉट सिमिलर, सो आई you are paying extra money. So just think through, some logics are not correct. आपका एपिक जो है $40,000 इज नॉट राइट वैल्यू. आप जो अभी लॉजिक यूज कर रहे हो दैट इज राइट कि आपने $8 से इशू किया है, बट आपका लॉस थोड़ा और ज्यादा है. सो वेयर द अमाउंट विल गो? डेबिट टू रिटेन्ड अर्निंग्स. वापस मैं आता हूं एक बार हमारे फर्स्ट एग्जांपल पे. दिस इज योर फर्स्ट वन. आपने इश्यू किया था $15 पे, आपने बायबैक किया $20 पे. आपके पास एपिक था सिर्फ $1,000 का, तो अनदर $1,000 का हिट आपने लिया रिटेन अर्निंग्स के थ्रू. ओके, दिस लुक्स गुड. एंट्री क्लियर हो आप कॉन्सेप्ट से, वाई रिटेन अर्निंग्स इज डेबिटेड?
Yes.
चलिए, आपने री इश्यू किए $18 पे. So you are taking $90,000, so cash account debited $90,000. आप हमेशा बुक करोगे पार पे कॉमन स्टॉक को 5,000 into 5 and remaining is the epic. Perfect. Sounds good. So are you confident now under both cost method as well as par value method?
Yes.
कुछ और examples चाहिए? I can get you created for your homework if you want.
No, I'll attempt the MCQs better.
ठीक है, sure. चलो थोड़ा आगे चलते हैं. So we have done a cost method here. We have done a par value method here. It's the same example, so I'm not going through. Before we go towards the type of dividend, I think there is a one more concept in your book, which is a retirement of the stocks. So as I said, कि दो चीजें हो सकती है कि आपने जो ट्रेजरी स्टॉक लिए हैं या तो आप उनको री इश्यू करो या आप उनको रिटायर करो. So when you retire the share, how accounting happens under cost method and how accounting happens under the par value method. So par value, it's a very simple method to understand. Why? Because हम हमारी सारी entries देखेंगे buyback की under a par value method. What we are saying, treasury stock debited at par value. So this is always debited at a par value. So what we are saying कि ये जो treasury stock है, these are not going to be reissued again. We are canceling this stock. So what we are doing basically, हमारे जो common stock थे, let's say $50,000 के हमारे total number of share थे, जिसमें से हमने $5,000 को buyback किया था. Now 5,000 could be reissued, could be cancelled. अगर हम इनको permanently cancel करते हैं, then we have now issued shares are only 45,000. तो हमारा एंट्री क्या होगा? कॉमन स्टॉक डेबिट टू ट्रेजरी स्टॉक. वी आर जस्ट कैंसलिंग द स्टॉक एंटायरली फ्रॉम योर बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट. अमाउंट रिमेन्स द सेम बिकॉज आप पार वैल्यू पे हो. दोनों कॉमन स्टॉक और ट्रेजरी स्टॉक हमेशा पार वैल्यू पे ही रिकॉर्ड होते हैं. सो योर एंट्री इज कॉमन स्टॉक अकाउंट डेबिट टू ट्रेजरी स्टॉक. ये कॉमन स्टॉक क्या है? जब आपने फर्स्ट टाइम शेयर को इश्यू किया था, यू हैड अ एंट्री कॉल्ड कैश डेबिट टू कॉमन स्टॉक टू एपिक. So this common stock you created during the first transaction is getting reversed out, and the treasury stock जो आपने यहाँ पर create किया है during the buyback, that is getting reversed out by crediting that particular account. So your retirement under par value, it's very simple. You just cancel the equity share and treasury stock and at a par value, and your entry is completed. Retirement of share par value, कोई भी doubt आपको?
This entry is after buyback.
After buyback and when company decides to retire or cancel the treasury stock. So ये आपके पास दो चीज हो सकती है. When you have a treasury stock, either you reissue them. So we saw all the examples here. Company have reissued everything, or company can retire or cancel the shares. So company can do either of one thing only. Either वो लोग शेयर को वापस इश्यू करेंगे or they will cancel or retire the share. If they reissue, all these examples are relevant. If they retire or cancel, only this particular entry is recorded.
Hmm.
ठीक है. Now what happens under a cost method? Cost method में problem क्या है कि when you recorded your treasury stock, you recorded at cost. So this entry is recorded at a cost. So आपको ये जो एडजस्टमेंट है वो सारे रिवाइज करने पड़ेंगे एंड टू ब्रिंग देम एट अ पार वैल्यू मेथड. सो व्हाट वी आर सेइंग, सपोज 5000 जो शेयर्स थे वो हम कैंसिल कर रहे हैं आफ्टर बाइंग बैक. तो जब आपने फर्स्ट टाइम इशू किया होगा 5000 शेयर, वी वुड हैव रिकॉर्डेड समथिंग लाइक दिस: कैश अकाउंट डेबिटेड, लेट्स से 5000 into 15, your common stock account $5000 into, let's say in this example, what is the par value given? 10, and then epic would have been 25,000. ये आपने पहले एंट्री की होगी. So we are now canceling this common stock and we are canceling even the treasury stock. Only problem is your common stock here is at $50,000 and your treasury stock is at $75,000. So there is an imbalance of $25,000 which we need to reverse out. So what accounting entry we do? Common stock is reversed always at par value. So let's say in this particular example, the company has buyback 200 share. Par value was $10. Originally, it was sold for $15 and buyback happened at a $20. So let's try to build a model. What example is trying to say? So this example is trying to say original issue $15. You have buyback at $20 and now you are retiring them. Let's quickly write down the entries. When you issue original share, your entry is cash account debited to common stock to epic. What is the amount? 200 share into 15, 200 share into 10, and
Uh,
remaining 200 into 5. Sorry,
200 into for cash, how much?
200 into 15. This is the issued price. So total 200 shares we are talking about in this example. 200 share, $10 par value, sold for 15. So your entry is cash account debited 200 into 15, to common stock 200 into 10, and 200 into 5 is your epic.
Okay.
This is your first entry while issue of the share. Now let's say when you buy back them, can I say you are using a cost method? So when you use a cost method, you take a treasury stock at cost to cash. You are buying back 200 stock at 20 each. So that is 4,000. And now company is retiring the shares. Now can we say you have a common stock created at $2,000, but you have a treasury stock at $4,000. So there is a mismatch or a imbalance. So how we are going to close this particular transaction? So what we are saying, common stock is debited always at a par value. So common stock is debited $2,000. So I can say this entry is knocked off and this entry is knocked off. So debit credit net to zero. This is credit, this is debit, account is closed. Now treasury stock, we have to again close the value. So treasury stock, we have a value of $4,000. So treasury stock is closed with $4,000. So here if you see treasury stock is closed with $4,000. Now thumb rule says check if you have a balance in EPIC. If you don't have a balance in EPIC, use a retained earnings. So what is the EPIC balance? $1,000. So let's use that. And any balance is left, 4,000 minus 2,000 minus 1,000. So 1,000 balance will go to a retained earnings. This is how you retire the share under a cost method.
Why
I'm
is
just
there
drawing.
why is there a
बोलिए.
balance coming why is there a balance coming from retained earnings?
Because that's the accumulated earnings. So कंपनी कुछ भी डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेगी, कुछ भी लॉस करेगी, तो वो अपने अर्निंग्स में से करेगी. सो इन दिस एग्जांपल अगर आप इसको एनालाइज करो, आपने जब शेयर इश्यू किए थे तो आपने ₹3,000 में इश्यू किए थे. बट व्हेन यू आर टेकिंग इट बैक, आप उसका रीपेमेंट कर रहे हो 4,000 का. सो इफेक्टिवली यू आर मेकिंग अ लॉस ऑफ 1,000.
Okay.
अच्छा, इसको हम जस्ट कंपेयर करें पार वैल्यू से. सो दिस इज योर कॉस्ट मेथड रिटायरमेंट. अब इसको हम लोग पार वैल्यू से कंपेयर करते हैं. द थिंग्स विल बी वेरी वेरी इजी बिकॉज आप पार वैल्यू पे ही सब कुछ बुक करते हो. सो व्हेन यू इश्यू द शेयर, इट्स अ सेम एंट्री. सो यू हैव अ कैश डेबिट टू कॉमन स्टॉक टू एपिक. आप जब बायबैक करते हो, व्हाट यू डू, यू से अ ट्रेजरी स्टॉक अकाउंट डेबिट 200 शेयर एट $10 ईच. यू डेबिट एपिक 200. ओरिजिनल आपके पास 5 का एपिक था. आप पे कितना कर रहे हो? 4,000. इफेक्टिवली आपका बैलेंस कहां पर जाएगा? रिटेन अर्निंग्स में, विच इज 1,000. अब आपको जब स्टॉक को कैंसिल करना है, व्हाट इज गोइंग टू बी योर एंट्री? कॉमन स्टॉक अकाउंट डेबिटेड टू ट्रेजरी स्टॉक, स्ट्रेट अवे $200 इंटू 10, पार वैल्यू. पार वैल्यू. अगर आप नेट इफेक्ट देखोगे, here you are putting retained earnings and epic in the last entry. Here you are doing during the second entry. So way you book your accounting is different. Ultimate accounting is the same only. It's just a way you move your transaction between your multiple GL accounts. That is only the different thing. Rest, conceptually, if you understand whether it's a par method or a cost method, ultimate things are the same. And hence your always your shareholders equity total remains the same, whether you use a cost method or you use a par value method.
Okay.
All clear with this example? आ सकता है आपको full fledged example in the exam.
Yeah.
चलिए, there is a one more simple concept, donated stock. This is हम लोग next chapter में cover करेंगे when you issue something for a free or something as a donated stock. तो इसको कैसे treat करते हैं? So let's leave it for a time being. And then this ends your entire chapter. Let's take a 2 to 5 minutes break. Let's come back and let's start with stockholders equity. Now this module 4 is a very simple. The complications were for cost method versus par value method. This we are going to run through in next 30 minutes only. And then last half an hour, we will solve on the Forex part where you have a question. So it's 6:43 at my time. I'll be back in 2 to 3 minutes time. And then we will start with the module 4. चलो शुरू करते हैं वापस. The next part, stockholders equity, very basic concepts we need to see. Quickly हम इसको go through कर लेंगे. Examples we will see. Only a one important concept in this chapter is a small dividend versus large dividend. How accounting changes in those particular scenario, but very simple. Maybe 5-10 minutes of the stuff and we will get it done. So let's just understand first few key concepts. When dividend questions are coming up, we have to understand what is the declaration date. So declaration date is a date when a dividend is approved officially by board of directors. It is the date on which liability is created, and it is the date on which a fair market value needs to be assessed if we are giving a dividend other than cash. Suppose in a MCQ they give you that a company is declaring a property dividend. 1st of January it's approved, 15th of February it is added in the record, and 3rd of March it is paid. So which date you should use to record the dividend based on the fair market value? The answer will be dividend declaration date, the date when it is approved by the board of directors. Then you have a record date. So record date means the name of the shareholders are entered into the register, that this many shareholders are available as on dividend declaration date. So it's not an accounting event, so there is no entry is recorded. It's just an activity which take place. And then finally, when dividend is paid, the date of payment is the actual dividend paid. Now, when you give a cash dividend, your entry is retained earnings account debited to dividend payable. And once you pay the dividend, it's a dividend payable to cash. Again, retained earnings debited to dividend payable is recorded on the date of declaration, and payment is recorded on the date of payment. What happens if you are having a dividend paid in the property? So we say the date when dividend is declared, let's debit retained earnings and credit dividend payable. The fair market value is checked on the date of dividend declaration. You may have a script dividends issued. Again, the entry is retained earnings debit to scripts payable or a notes payable. The scripts basically होती क्या है? It's just another issue of the security by the company which allows you to collect the money at a later date. So just understand it's a notes payable or a voucher payable issued by the company in lieu of the cash payment. Again, your entry remains the same. Retained earnings account debited to notes payable. And the
What do you
last
mean
one,
by a voucher? Mm,
voucher payable or a notes payable, they just give you a note where they say that the dividend was due on 1st of January. However, actual payment will take place on 31st of December. And for this 12 months of delay, you will get extra 5% interest. Just kind of the promissory note which you issue.
okay.
And the last is a liquidating dividend. Liquidating dividend is nothing but you are giving a dividend more than your earnings. Suppose you have earned during the year $100 and now you are issuing a dividend of $200. That means you are not giving the dividend only to the shareholder, you are giving the capital back to the shareholder as well. Hence, it is called a liquidating dividend. Liquidating dividend applicable only and only if your earnings are not sufficient and you are still giving the more dividend to your shareholder. It is basically treated as if it's a return of your capital. So what we are saying, your debit retained earnings to the extent profit is available. So in my example, let's say you have a profit of $100 and you declared a dividend of $175. So up to $100, you have a profit available. So it's a retained earnings debited. $75 which you are giving extra dividend back, it is debited through your APIC to dividend payable. This is only a one more concept. APIC is debited because it's a part of the equity. You are treating as if you are paying the capital back if earnings are not available, but you are still paying the dividend to your shareholders. So some very small but very important key concepts here. चलो एक बार book देख लेते हैं, then we'll come to a stock dividends. So let's quickly go through the book. First point irrelevant फटाफट से देख लेते हैं. When the stock is issued above par value, you create your epic. So epic से अगर आपने higher price पे share issue किया है, epic will be credited. अगर आपने कम प्राइस पे इशू किया है स्टॉक, epic will be debited. So common stock are recorded at a par. Above par value है, epic credit होगा. Below par value है, epic is going to be debited. So first 1, 2 and 3 point are stock issued above par, at par and below par value. Next one is a stock subscription. So sometimes what happens कि जब आप अपने equity share issue करते हो, you don't ask for the 100% money upfront. Rather, you give them a subscription model where, let's say, a shareholder can pay in 2 installments, 3 installments, 5 installment, as the case may be. So it is called a stock subscription. You recognize the cash when it is collected, and till the time the amount is not fully collected, you treat the item as a common stock subscribed. Once you have a full stocks available, you close the common stock subscribed account, and you treat everything as a equity common stock. Again, a very basic, not expected to come into the exams.
I didn't understand the entry.
Okay. So for example, you have a subscription, let's say 1,000 shares of common stock at $100 per share. Now let's say this equity share is payable into a 5 equal installment. So subscription receivable is $1 lakh full amount. Your payment may not be received in the full amount. Entry is common stock subscribed. It is not yet issued because the shareholder has not paid you the money. So the entry is subscription receivable account debited 1 lakh, payment yet to be received. Common stock subscribed, common stock yet to be issued $10,000, and remaining is your epic. Now let's say a customer is paying 1/5 of the amount in the first month. Your entry is cash account debit to subscription receivable 20,000. Month 2, cash account debit to subscription receivable 20,000. Same goes for month 3 and 4 and 5. Once the shareholder pays 100% of the money, the common stock subscribed account gets debited and common stock issued account gets credited. Basically, you issue a share once 100% payment is received from the shareholder.
Okay.
Okay, the next is a cancellation. Upon the payment of the subscription, so this is the entry which we saw just now. Upon the payment of the subscription receivable account is credited and cash accounts are debited. Assume that $85,000 out of $1 lakh are collected. So you have already collected now 85,000. So entry is cash account debited to subscription receivable, including 80,000 in the full payment and 5,000 in the partial subscription payment. So आपने 1 लाख का subscription receivable रखा था, उसमें से आपको 85,000 मिल चुका है. Entry is cash account debited to subscription receivable.
But don't we have to wait till 100,000?
You are not issuing the share. You are just recording the cash entry. The shares will be issued. The entry will be common stock subscribed account debit to common stock issued account.
Okay.
So ये आप just receivable close करके cash को debit कर रहे हो because the money is received. अगर आप इसका net effect देखो, so what is the net entry? Cash account debit $85,000, subscription receivable account debit $15,000, two common stock purchase 10,000, two epic 90,000. This is the net entry of the two transactions. चलिए, फॉर एग्जाम्पल कोई शेयर होल्डर ने लेट से पूरा पैसा दे दिया है. नाउ यू आर इशूइंग द शेयर. व्हाट इज योर एंट्री? कॉमन स्टॉक सब्सक्राइब्ड अकाउंट डेबिट टू कॉमन स्टॉक इश्यूड. So whatever all the three entries we discussed 5 minutes back, they have given the same accounting entry by a various accounting events. कोई भी डाउट आपको यहाँ पर एंट्रीज में नहीं पूछा जाएगा मोस्टली, बट कॉन्सेप्ट जानना इंपॉर्टेंट है. Okay. Now sometimes what happens, you may forfeit the subscription as well. Suppose what happens ki customer has, let's take this example only. Customer has paid $85,000 out of 1 lakh, and now customer is not paying remaining $15,000. So you decided to forfeit the subscription. What is your entry? Cash account debit to subscription receivable 8585. Remaining $15,000 you are going to suspend. So your entry, that is your gain. So you are suspending because you have received the money, but still you are not issuing them any particular share. So what description says that if all or a part of a subscription is not collected, the term of the subscription agreement and corporate policy will determine the appropriate accounting treatment. Generally, the treatment is to reverse the applicable portion of the original entry. So what we are saying ki reverse the original entry entirely because they are not going to get anything now. However, जो आपने $85,000 collect किया है, this is forfeited now. So this is your other income which is reported on the income statement. जहाँ पर आपने पैसा collect कर लिया shareholder से, but you are not giving anything back to them because they have defaulted to a legal contract. ठीक है, the stock rights, this is a theoretical amount कि your equity shares might come with a certain rights. This we saw into
For the previous one, we will only record it. It's upon us. We can choose whatever we want to do.
it is a legal contract. It will not be a choosing option. There will be a legal contract when any equity shares are issued. So that legal agreement will say, maybe legal agreement says that you can forfeit 70% and remaining 30% you have to give it back. Or maybe it says you can forfeit 100%. So it depends on the terms of the legal agreement between the company and the subscriber. चलिए स्टॉक राइट्स एक बार देख लेते हैं. स्टॉक राइट्स क्या होता है? स्टॉक राइट इज अ ऑप्शन which gives existing shareholder an opportunity to buy the additional share. This we covered yesterday, if you remember, preemptive shares. So it gives a shareholder an edge to buy the additional share to make sure his weightage in the company remains intact. This right usually carries a price below the stock market price. अब ये है ना फ्यूचर्स एंड ऑप्शंस की अकाउंटिंग है, सो वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू डू इन डिटेल राइट अवे, but it is covered under your derivatives accounting where there is a right where you can purchase a stock market below the market price. How detailed accounting will take place, you just understand right now from a theoretical point of view. A stock right means a shareholder has a right to purchase the additional shares at a later date which is below market price date. इसकी detailed accounting कैसे होती है? You even have to record this particular option which company is giving to you before the shares are issued. तो हम पूरा देखेंगे when we understand the derivatives accounting. चलिए अब आ गया सेकंड हमारा डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन टू द शेयर होल्डर. सो दिस इज बेसिकली अ डिविडेंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. So there is a date of declaration. So this is the date when board of directors officially approves the dividend. This is the date on which fair market values are generally reviewed. Accounting entry is triggered on the date of declaration. The entry is retained earnings account debited to dividend payable. Date of record. So this is the date on which a entry of the shareholders are done in the register. It is not an accounting event. It's just a process note कि आप लिस्ट बनाते हो कि कौन से शेयर होल्डर है जिनको हमें डिविडेंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करना है. And the date of payment, this is the date on which the payment is actually made. Now you can be paying a dividend in cash. That's a simple entry, dividend payable account debit to cash credit. You might be giving them a property or in-kind dividend. So this is not a cash distribution, rather it's a property or in-kind distribution. So you have to ensure that a fair market value on the date of declaration is taken as a dividend amount. You might be giving them a scrip dividend. Scrip dividend का मतलब होता है notes payable. You are not paying them a cash today, but you are giving them a promissory note which says कि आपको dividend और 12 महीने के बाद मिलेगा cash में, but you might be getting certain interest as well because we are paying you a delayed dividend. So scrip dividends are simply a special form of notes payable whereby company commits to paying a dividend at a later date. The scrip dividend may be used when there is a cash shortage. आज company के पास पैसा नहीं है, they still want to give you a dividend at a later date, and because there is a delay in dividend payment, they will be giving you a interest as well. The next is a liquidating dividend. So liquidating dividend का मतलब क्या है कि कंपनी के पास प्रॉफिट्स नहीं है, still they are paying a more and more dividend. तो अप टू द पॉइंट ऑफ प्रॉफिट यू डेबिट द रिटेन अर्निंग्स, लेकिन आप प्रॉफिट के ऊपर भी अगर कुछ डिविडेंड देते हो देन योर ईपीक इज डेबिटेड. इट इज कॉल्ड अ रिटर्न ऑफ कैपिटल. So liquidating dividend occur when dividend paid to the shareholder exceed the retained earnings. Dividend in excess of retained earnings will be charged to first epic, and अगर epic भी sufficient नहीं हो रहा है then you are going to debit your common stock. Liquidating dividends reduces the total paid up capital. Now this concept generally asked in MCQ कि what is the meaning of liquidating dividend? Your answer should be it's a return of capital. कोई भी क्वेश्चन यहाँ तक आपको? थियोरेटिकल पॉइंट्स है सारे. एनी क्वेश्चंस?
No.
चलिए ठीक है. वन लास्ट कॉन्सेप्ट फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर चैप्टर एंड देन योर फार वन विल बी कंप्लीटेड. अ ट्रीटमेंट ऑफ अ स्टॉक डिविडेंड. सो समटाइम्स व्हाट हैपन कि कंपनी आपको डिविडेंड देगा इन द नेचर ऑफ द स्टॉक. नाउ इसमें दो टाइप हो सकता है. वन इज अ स्मॉल स्टॉक डिविडेंड, वन इज अ लार्ज स्टॉक डिविडेंड. Now, small stock dividend का मतलब है company is issuing 20 to 25% of the total share as a stock dividend. Again, it's a judgment call. Accounting standard says 20 to 25% is a small stock dividend. अगर company small stock dividend issue करती है, तो you are going to treat the item as a normal accounting journal entry only. So before going to the theory, example समझते हैं and the things will be very very easy. For example, a capital corporation has 1 lakh share of $10 par value outstanding. The company declares a stock dividend of 5,000 share. So it is roughly 5%. So 5,000 divided by 1 lakh share, a 5% stock dividend, less than 25%. So it's a small stock dividend. So this 5,000 shares are issued as a dividend when a fair market value of the share is $15. So your fair market value for your shares were $15 when you decided to issue 5,000 share. 5,000 shares divided by 1 lakh is equal to 5%, which is considered a small stock dividend. You are required to prepare an entry to record this. Your entry is retained earnings account debited to dividend payable on the date of declaration. Now let's assume the dividend declaration is done and you are issuing the share. So we are recording a net entry now here. So what we are saying, 5,000 shares into $15 when the dividend was declared, that is debited to your retained earnings. Your entry is retained earnings account debited $75,000, 5,000 share into $15 each. These are effectively reissuing the new share. So you are again crediting your common stock. $5,000 common stock is always recorded at par value. So 5,000 into 10. Remaining balance will go as a epic paid in capital. The amount is 5,000 into 5, which is $25,000. So this is treated just as if a new stock are issued, but you have not collected the cash. Rather, you have distributed your retained earnings to issue this 5,000 new share. And hence it is called a small stock dividend. Entry is exactly the same as if a new shares are issued. Rather than you collect the cash from the shareholder, you are giving this as a dividend. So rather than debiting the cash, you debit the retained earnings. Rest common stock at par and EPIC as a plug difference remains the same. Clear with example number one?
Why is it going to Epic? We are not having any gain.
Sorry, we are not having any.
We are not having any gain, so why are we crediting Epic?
EPIC is not created when there is a gain. Last example, I told you it's a gain for your logical understanding. यहाँ पर आप ऐसा समझो कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ कंपनी इज लाइक गिव मी अ जर्नल एंट्री, कंपनी इश्यूड 5,000 शेयर, par value 10, issue price 15. What will be your entry?
Uh, Debit cash 15 into how many shares?
5,000 shares,
15 to 5,000. Credit common stock, credit Epic, yes.
right? So you are doing the same entry here. But यहाँ पर आप शेयर होल्डर से कैश नहीं कलेक्ट कर रहे हो, यू आर गिविंग अ डिविडेंड टू देम. So rather than you collecting the cash, you are reducing your accumulated earnings. Hence, you just debit a retained earnings, which is a withdrawal of your retained earnings in the nature of dividend. बट रेस्ट ऑफ द कॉन्सेप्चुअल एंट्री रिमेन्स द सेम। अगर ये कैश में सब्सक्रिप्शन होता, आपकी एंट्री होती कैश अकाउंट 75 टू कॉमन स्टॉक 50 टू एपिक 25, इट्स अ सेम एंट्री। बट आप शेयर होल्डर को क्या बोल रहे हो कि भाई मेरे को कैश नहीं चाहिए, दिस इज योर डिविडेंड, दिस इज फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट टू यू, वी आर रिड्यूसिंग अवर रिटेन अर्निंग्स बिकॉज वी आर गिविंग दिस थिंग्स फ्री टू यू। क्लियर है एग्जाम्पल?
Uh, I get the retained earnings. What's your point for paid in capital?
रिटेन अर्निंग्स क्या होता है, आप मुझे पहले ये बताओ।
Net income
नेट इनकम और अक्यूमुलेटेड नेट इनकम।
accumulated.
Net income is a P&L item. Net income for the period. When you say retained earnings, it's a accumulated net income over the years. अब मुझे किसी को डिविडेंड देना है तो मैं किस में से दूंगा, जो मैंने अर्न किया है उसी में से मैं दूंगा डिविडेंड।
Yes,
So what is your earnings over the years? It's a retained earnings. So you debit the retained earnings.
yes,
ठीक है, ऑल क्लियर विद एग्जांपल वन?
yes.
चलिए आ जाइए, एक दो एग्जांपल है, ओवर टू यू। स्मॉल स्टॉक डिविडेंड। यू हैव 1 2 3 4 क्वेश्चंस, आप सॉल्व कीजिए 1 and 2 ओनली। दे आर स्मॉल डिविडेंड, 3 and 4 फॉर लार्ज डिविडेंड। सो ओवर टू यू, जर्नल एंट्री फॉर स्मॉल डिविडेंड्स। लेट्स गो स्टेप बाय स्टेप। 10,000 शेयर्स है, कंपनी डिविडेंड कितना दे रही है, 10%। सो दैट इज 1,000 स्टॉक्स आर इशूड एज अ डिविडेंड। रिटेन अर्निंग्स कौन से वैल्यू से डेबिट होता है, द अमाउंट at which dividend should be payable. So 1,000 share into 25, it should be your debit to retained earnings, which is $25,000. How 25,000 come again? आपके total shares है 10,000. You are issuing 10% stock dividend. It means 1,000 shares you are giving away. At what is the market price today? 25. Your entry is retained earnings account debit 25,000 to common stock 1,000 into 10, 10,000, and the plug goes to your epic or a paid in capital. Looks good. एक बार सेकंड वाला भी देख लो। XYZ Corporation, you have a 50,000 shares outstanding, 20% stock dividend declare कर रहे हो, that is your 10,000 number of share. Market value is 8, par value is 2. So debit retained earnings at what amount? $80,000 perfect to common stock to epic. परफेक्ट, लुक्स गुड। कोई डाउट आपको स्मॉल डिविडेंड में?
Mhm.
चलिए लार्ज डिविडेंड पे आते हैं। नाउ इफ यू आर इशूइंग मोर देन 20-25%, तो इसको हम बोलेंगे लार्ज डिविडेंड। नाउ व्हेन यू आर डूइंग अ लार्ज डिविडेंड, द प्रॉब्लम इज स्टॉक मार्केट में प्रॉब्लम्स हो सकती है, because small dividends say 5%, 10%, that is okay. It is not going to change your market cap or EPS or book value per share for the equity shareholders. But if you issue a large stock dividend, as the name suggests, you are making a long impact into the stock market. So, what theory says, when more than 25% of the previously issued outstanding shares are distributed, the dividend is treated as a large dividend, as it may be expected to reduce the market price of the stock. It is very, very similar to a stock split. The par value of the stock dividend is normally transferred from the retained earnings to the capital stock to meet the legal requirement. Your entry again, it's the same, retained earnings to common stock. However, the only change is you do not book anything at a epic. You assume whatever stock you have issued, they are representing of your entire common stock value only. एग्जाम्पल देखते हैं, अगेन दैट्स वेरी सिंपल कॉन्सेप्ट, आपको समझ आएगा व्हाट वी आर ट्राइंग टू से। सपोज LMT Corporation declares a 40% stock dividend on its 1 million share which were outstanding at a $10 per common stock. तो आपके पास 1 million शेयर थे, you decided to distribute 40% as a dividend, which comes to $400,000 of the share. The date on the declaration, the stock was sold at $20 per share. So what is your total amount of distribution? It is going to be 400,000 shares into $20 per share as a fair market value. However, what accounting standard and legal SEBI advisory or SEC advisory says that if you are issuing a more than 20-25% stock dividend, which is a full stock dividend, then we don't care whether it's a dividend or not. We just assume you are changing your retained earnings and you are increasing your equity capital. Basically, what they are saying, you are playing internally within your equity accounts only. We don't allow you to record the transaction at $20 per share. Just treat this as a common stock issued at a par. There is no cash movement, of course, because it's a dividend issued. Subscribers are not paying any money to you. Your entry is straight away retained earnings account debited to common stock. I'm ignoring this line item and I'm ignoring this line item because it's a debit credit zero. Your net entry is retained earnings account debited to common stock 4 million straight away. So again, what we are saying कि आपको कितने शेयर्स मिले 1 million, 40% उसका डिविडेंड इश्यू हुआ 400,000 शेयर. Just record this as if you are issuing these shares at a par value. Why? Because अगर आपने $20 बोल दिया, तो हो सकता है कि मार्केट में जो आपका शेयर प्राइस है वहां पर इम्पैक्ट आ जाए, and 40% is a huge benchmark and the impact can be material. So we don't allow you to record anything at a fair market value and manipulate your books of accounts. Do one thing, if it's a large dividend, record everything at a par value to meet a legal requirement. Again, entry is very same. It's retained earnings account debit to common stock. Because everything is recorded at a par value, there is no requirement to create the EPIC here.
What to do of common stock distributable?
So that's a temporary account. So not on the same day you are going to issue the share. So what they are saying, retained earnings to common stock distributable, and common stock distributable to common stock. So this is just a temporary account which is created. So we can ignore this straight away. In accounting, a lot of time you will see debit plus credit is net to zero. Here it's a 4 million credit. Here it's a 4 million debit. It's net to zero. So you don't need this intermediate accounts every time. You can simply look at the conceptual entry, which is retained earnings account debited to common stock.
Okay.
ठीक है, over to you, L and P column, last two examples. So 20,000 shares outstanding, आपने 40%, that is 8,000 आपने issue किए हैं. Why
For
one? Yeah, what is the, हाँ, value कैसे निकाला आपने? Okay, so second one, 15,000 common stock, 30% dividend, that is 4,500 at 10, 45,000. Perfect. I think this ends your FAR 1 entirely. No more concepts there. Stock splits, it's a similar concept. We just debit common stock at a one class, we credit common stock at another class. And then this is a presentation again given for the changes in equity. What is your retained earnings, your common stock, your OCI, beginning balance, net income, reclassifications, dividend, ending balance. So this is just a formatting which we saw right in the first slide of this particular chapter. And that is it. Your FAR 1 is over with this. कोई भी
okay,
question FAR 1 में?
far 3 की जो last page था.
चलो लास्ट पेज पे आ जाता है एक बार. यस.
नहीं, this is far 3. The
Which
treasury
one?
stock, the previous chapter, the treasury stock chapter.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes, donated stock.
Donated
What's
stock, donated stock is again kind of a dividend which you are giving free to the customer. Now, it could be a treasury stock or it could be a fresh stock as well. For example, this is a donated stock in the sense of the treasury stock. Donated stock of the company, it's their own stock which they have received as a donation from the shareholder. So first of all, you have taken the share back from the customer. So you have, let's forget donated word. You have a treasury stock account debited to your APIC account because this is your profit. आपने share let's say sell किया था, issue किया था $10 पे. Now the shareholder has donated it to you for a free of cost. So your entry is treasury stock account debited to APIC account. This is your full profit. Now let's say if you are reissuing the donated stock to somebody else, so you are getting the cash, so cash account debited. The donated stock, whatever account you have opened here, the same amount will get closed out here. Now let's say कि आपको जो donated stock मिला था वो zero value पे वापस मिला था, and now you are reissuing the share for $10. So whatever you are earning, which is more than your donation price you paid, it is a credit of your capital. हो सकता है कि you are issuing this share at a loss. Again, why I'm saying do not look at these words, just go with the concepts here.
will it be in par value or book or in cost value? That when we are selling it?
It's a actual selling price. So when you sell, you don't check par value or
No, the
cost.
donated treasury stock entry, the fourth one.
It depends at which price you have received the donation. So if it's a free of cost, it is going to be the fair market value. If there is actual price which you have paid, then actual price value you have paid. So basically a cost method concept should become applicable here.
Okay.
ठीक है, again not expecting a lot of things from here. ये chapter में only the important thing is first two example and stock dividend and small dividend, large dividend, uh, plus your cost method and par value method. Those are the important one concepts. ठीक है, so before we move to part 2, I saw you were little bit struggling towards the forex. So let's quickly have a few example of forex and then we will call it a day, and then tomorrow onwards we will start with the part 2. First of all, I want to understand कि आप कहाँ पर stuck हो रहे हो, what is the problem area in forex.
Uh, there were some terminologies in the exam related to forex which I have no idea. So there was something called the two class method. I'm not sure if that was forex or something else. Then
No,
current
that
rate,
is else we will still learn that, so that is
yeah,
okay.
current rate method, closing rate, temporal method, historical
हम्म,
cost method. I didn't have any idea of all these terminologies.
चलिए ठीक है, तो सबसे पहले आपको रेट्स की जानकारी होना जरूरी है. Historical rate, it means the rate on which the transaction was initially booked. This is generally used for your equity accounts because equity accounts never gets changed frequently. So you generally use a historical method. Or for that sense, property, plant and equipment, your fixed assets, they are generally booked at a historical rate. Why? Because आपने asset लिया होगा 5 साल 10 साल 15 साल 20 साल पहले. So you don't want to use US dollar rate of today. You want to use the dollar rate 20 years back because that represents your actual cost. So historical cost is generally used for your equity accounts and your PP&E long-term accounts which were taken a year back. Temporal method is a translation method. Once we will do a consolidation, you will understand. At temporal method, we record everything at a closing rate. So right now, just ignore it. Once we'll go to a consolidation translation, we'll understand that method in detail. Average rate, your income statement items are generally converted using the average rate because during the year you are entering multiple transactions. So you don't want to look at the transaction spot rate for every item. Rather than you can use an average rate and you can multiply your transactions. Remaining all the items of the balance sheet, they are converted by using the closing rates. Closing rates का दूसरा नाम है current rate, that the closing rate, the rate at which balance sheet is getting closed. So historical rate, old items. Temporal method, consolidation के time पे देखेंगे. Income statement, you use a average rate. Rest all the item you take a current rate or a closing rate. एग्जाम्पल 1 ऑन योर स्क्रीन, आप पढ़ो. गिवन अटेम्प्ट, लेट मी अंडरस्टैंड आप कहां पर स्टक हो रहे हो सो आई कैन हेल्प यू बेटर. So you are ABC Incorporation. You are from US. You have purchased an inventory from Indian supplier for 10 lakh Indian rupees. So on the date of purchase, आपका डॉलर में ऑब्लिगेशन कितना बनेगा? So that's 10 lakh divided by 80. I don't know. I don't have a calculator. Let me open the phone. 10 lakh divided by 80, that's $12,500. Now, when year end comes up, you still have to pay Indian supplier 10 lakh, but your dollar rate is 82, so your obligation is 12,195. So basically initially जो आपको 12,500 देना था, on 31st of March you feel you are only supposed to pay 12,195. Is it your gain or is it your loss?
No, again,
Why gain? Because you will be paying a lower dollar
less.
amounts. So first entry, it's your debit your inventories, credit your accounts payable, $12,500. Second entry, it's going to be your debit your AP, because it's a gain. You are going to pay lower amount to your accounts payable to foreign exchange gain, and the amount will be 12,500 minus 12,195. However, effectively you end up paying what? $12,820. So your AP was how much? 12,500 minus 305. That was your AP balance.
Mm,
So debit AP 12,195. However, how much cash you paid? 12,820. So you have incurred effectively a loss of $625 as a realized loss. So you paid extra dollar to settle the transaction. This is your realized loss.
I would go from retained earnings, so just debit loss.
Debit loss. Retained earnings are not required to use. ठीक है, that's a simple.
Can we open the question? There was a foreign currency question in the exam. I wanted to.
Let me figure it out. Exam कहाँ पर था, and let's see. चलिए, I'm sharing again. कौन सा क्वेश्चन नंबर है?
Um, in foreign currency MCQs.
Which question number?
Uh, I think 13.
A
Yes.
US company purchased inventory from a German supplier at 100,000 of euro. At the date of purchase, of 1 euro is equal to 1.10. At year end, 1 euro is equal to 1.15 and the payment is 1.12. The transaction gain and loss at a settlement is. ठीक है, it's a
My
simple.
my my answer was 3,000, so I there was not that option.
कैसे निकला 3,000? Let's put here.
3,000 मैंने पहले वो क्या कहते हैं year end I already recorded the gain and loss, and then from year end to the day we sell there was
चलो let's
just
solve this. Let's solve. हमने किया क्या है? यूरो टू यूएसडी दिया हुआ है. On the date of the purchase, 1 euro is equal to 1.1 USD. We purchased 100,000 of euro. So your initial entry for USD is going to be this much. This is your initial entry. इसके बाद आपका क्या ट्रांजैक्शन हुआ है? Let's see. Let's copy all this. On the year end, it's 1.15. So basically your obligation has increased now. So you have a loss because it's on a purchase side, so there is a loss or increase in AP for $5,000. चलिए, इसके बाद क्या हुआ है ट्रांजैक्शन में? व्हेन यू एक्चुअली पे इट्स 1.12, so it's effectively your gain. So this is 1.12, so effectively you are end up paying 1,12,000. So this is going to be your gain or slash reduction in AP. So this is your 1,12,000 minus 15,000. So what is your total
th-
gain on the settlement? This is your net $2,000 of your loss. So the transaction gain and loss total P&L में कितना गया? This is only a one transaction. But what is the transaction gain and loss overall? Overall, you have lost $2,000 for the
But
entire
but
transaction.
at settlement, aren't we only losing 3,000?
At settlement, yes. But what is the overall gain and loss for the transaction? That is a one date loss. उस दिन पे आपको 3,000 का लॉस हुआ. बट ओवरऑल आपने सप्लायर को कितना पे किया? आपने जब एंट्री बुक की तब आपने पे किया 1,10,000. आपने जब पेमेंट किया 1,12,000. सो आपकी पॉकेट से इफेक्टिवली एक्स्ट्रा पैसा कितना गया? 2,000. So one event is 3,000 only. But what is the net effect? आपकी जेब से कितना ज्यादा गया? ओवरऑल 2,000 ज्यादा गया उस दिन पे. दिस इज जस्ट एन इंटरमीडिएट एंट्री. ये
But
आपने
since at
रिवैल्यू
settlement,
करने के लिए पास की थी. See, loss stock from your point of view. You have to understand the question conceptually. अगर आपने उसी दिन पे कर दिया होता द डेट व्हेन यू परचेज यू वुड हैव पेड ओनली 110K. अग्री विद दिस?
yes.
आपने इफेक्टिवली कितना पे किया? 112K. आपकी जेब से कितना एक्स्ट्रा पैसा गया? सो इफ यू सी योर अकाउंटिंग योर आउटफ्लो, व्हाट इज योर इफेक्टिव लॉस? 2,000. This is one of the event only which has changed your accounting mechanism. But what is the gain? What is the gain or loss because of the settlement which has taken place? That's 2,000. If I select B, I don't know whether this is going to correct or not. You have paid less than your year-end liability. I think this answer is still wrong. It should be B answer. It's your loss. The answer is still wrong as per this sheet. It's a 2,000 loss, which is the extra payment you have made on the account of the settlement. 3,000 is just a one event. But because of the transaction आपने कितना lose किया आपका पैसा, it's $2,000 you have lost. But I think you are there. You just need to understand the question. Mathematically, you are there. So I don't see a challenge there. आपको just थोड़ा practice करने पड़ेंगे questions.
Can you go to question 27?
Question number 27. Which of the following best represents a liability? Equipment purchase on a credit, that's your asset. Equipment purchase is an asset. Common stock issued, that's your equity. Wages payable. Wages payable is your liability. C is the right answer.
I just have a question that equipment purchase on credit, it's what?
It's your asset. Equipment you purchase, that's your property, plant, and equipment.
But we're
Liability
purchasing on credit, so it's not a payable that we have.
is a payable, so that could be a right answer. But again, as I said, in CPA exams, you will have a two right answer. So let's see what is the second best option available. Wages payable to the employees. So this looks a more better option because employees have already worked. You have not paid to them. So this is your accrued liability. A could be a correct answer. अगर C में अगर आपको ऑप्शन दिया होता inventory, let's say, so I would have gone with option A. But option C is a more suitable answer to the given question. A में there is a second interpretation available that it's a fixed asset transaction. But C is a pure and pure liability transaction. Two correct answer. The C is more better answer for the given question.
Okay. I had to ask MCQs for M2.
चलिए दिखा दीजिए एक बार. क्या है क्वेश्चन? सॉरी, वेयर इट इज?
I think I this question. Yeah.
A company is required to file a quarterly financial statements with SEC. The company operate in an industry that is not subject to a seasonal fluctuation that could have a significant impact on its financial condition. In addition to a most recent quarter end, for which of the following period company is required to present a balance sheet in Form 10Q? So current quarter and the preceding fiscal year, C is the right answer. बैलेंस शीट आप एक बार टेबल ओपन कीजिए जो मैंने आपको भेजा था. बैलेंस शीट के लिए क्या है? करंट क्वार्टर एंड द लास्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर.
This is 10Q.
हाँ 10Q है, कुछ भी है, आपका बैलेंस शीट हमेशा लास्ट ईयर का ही जाएगा. ओपन द टेबल विच आई सेंड टू यू.
Yes.
Sorry, I cannot see. I can see only
Okay.
Word document. ठीक है. क्वार्टरली हम क्या बोल रहे हैं, बैलेंस शीट कैसे जाएगी? इफ यू सी सी कॉलम, द 3, 4 एंड 5th नंबर रो, Q1 25 वर्सेस Q4 24, Q2 25 वर्सेस Q4 24, Q3 25 वर्सेस Q4 24. बैलेंस शीट हमेशा करंट क्वार्टर वर्सेस लास्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर की ही जाएगी.
Right. Um,
This one.
yes.
16 January, Tree Company paid $60,000 in property taxes on its factory for the current calendar year. On 2nd April, Tree paid 2,40,000 for unanticipated major repairs to its factory equipment. The repair will benefit operations for the remainder of the calendar year. What amount of this expenses? इसको छोड़ दो अभी, interim financial reporting हमने cover नहीं किया है. We will see how the expenses needs to be recognized.
Okay. All right. Yes. In the EPS questions,
Hmm.
they were just calculating the percentage we would add in income and then the shares.
आप हमारे फॉर्मेट से जाओ, आपका आंसर कभी भी गलत नहीं होगा. देयर आर मल्टीपल वेज टू
Okay.
सॉल्व एंड आई थिंक दिस अप्रोच यू विल गेट कॉन्फिडेंट वंस यू गेट द ग्रिप एंड रिदम.
Okay.
चलिए ठीक है, देन विल सी यू टुमारो. विल स्टार्ट विद फार 2. फार 1 इज डन. कोई क्वेश्चन है तो पूछ लेना. दिस वीकेंड फार 1 फुल एग्जाम. ठीक है.
Okay.
ऑल राइट, चलिए बाय बाय.